Okay, so let's take a look at the additive model that we're going to create. Our first step is to create a portion of the part with a constant thickness. So in order to do that, we're going to create this back piece right here. We're breaking this shape into two pieces, the taller back piece and then the small cube in the front. So I need to start by drawing the profile of that shape, and I can either use the line tool in Onshape to do that, or I can do it with two rectangles. I will show you both methods, and then we will see, you guys can decide and evaluate which method is better. So first I'm going to go over to Onshape. I've already signed in, and I'm going to choose Create Document, and I'm going to name this 1.2.2 Additive Model. And I'm going to put my last name on it, as you should. So that way everybody has a similar file name except for your name in the file. And then we're going to hit OK, and it's going to load our workspace. Once my workspace is loaded, I'm going to choose Sketch. And remember, I need to keep this panel open. So your panel probably popped up right here. I don't like to keep them there. I think that's a little bit annoying. So I like to move them down here above my features panel. But make sure that you leave this open so that way your sketch stays active. So then I'm going to choose the front sketch plane because I'm drawing towards myself. And I'm going to use the view cube to rotate this to the front. Now the first method I'm going to demonstrate is using the line tool. And while I have measurements on that slide, I'm not going to worry about those measurements right now. Right now, I'm just going to draw the basic parts of that shape. Now this line, I'm going to actually bring it past where that blue dot is below, and that's because I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm going to use the line tool to connect these two, but I need to make sure it's perfectly straight, and because I don't really get a guideline, it's hard to tell where that is. So now I'm going to hit Escape. You'll notice this center part change color. I'm going to grab the trim tool and I'm going to get rid of this extra line right here. So that is one way to draw the profile. So if you just drew it that way, great. However, I'm going to show you how to do it with the rectangle tool as well. So let me just delete these lines. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. And I'm going to, the rectangle tool that I actually grabbed is the corner rectangle tool. So I'm going to click, and from a corner, it is going to create a rectangle. So I'm just going to make a rectangle like this. And then now it's created that rectangle. So now I'm going to come to the edge over here, and I'm going to create a rectangle like that. Then I'm going to grab the trim tool, and I'm going to delete that line that's in between. So those are the two different ways to create the profile of that shape. We can either use the line tool and draw the lines individually, or we can use the rectangle tool. I'm now going to hit the Escape key to drop my tool. And now I'm going to look back at this image. So I have some dimensions on here that I have to add so that this object is the overall right size. So let's start with this one over here. That is 1.5, and we're going to assume that it's in inches. So now I'm going to grab my dimension tool, and I'm going to click on the line and drag away. You'll see this number appears. And right now it's 2.73 inches. So I'm just going to type 1.5 on my keyboard and push the Enter key. And now resize my object so that line is 1.5. The next measurement we have is this top line being 1.5. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to click, drag away. Right now it's 1.6. I'm going to type 1.5. And now it has shrunk that line. Now the next measurement that we have is a 0.75 here and a 0.75 here to make that perfect cube. So I am going to select this line, and it's 0.84 right now, so I'm going to hit 0.75, and I am going to choose 0.75. So now what I'm going to do, now that I've dimensioned this, is I'm going to hit the green check mark for my sketch, and I'm going to come over here and choose this corner on my view cube again, so it rotates it to an isometric angle. So what I have to do next is I have to create the thickness of this part, which is 0.75. I'm going to do that with the extrude tool. I'm just going to click on that profile, and I'm going to come over here and type in 0.75. And I'm going to hit Enter, and it's going to make it that thickness. So now I've used the extrude tool and I've created this constant thickness across the back. So if I come back over to my slides, our step 2 is that we have to add a portion to the part with the constant thickness. And that is that we are adding this cube on the front, and it's 0.75 by 0.75 by 0.75. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the sketch tool again, and I'm going to click on the front face of this object. And I'm going to rotate to the front, and what that's done is it's now made this an area that I can draw on. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and it's the corner rectangle again. Starting in the lower left-hand corner, I'm going to click and just drag. Now you guys will notice these blue numbers. Instead of using the dimension tool, you can actually just watch those numbers and get them as close as you can to the size you need. Now this height is a little too tall because it needs to be exactly 0.75. So I'm going to redimension this to just 0.75. And now while visually we don't see a difference there, if we were to 3D print this part, it would make a difference. So now I've got that dimension to 0.75. And I'm going to change this to 0.75. And so now I have that perfect cube. So now I'm going to stop my sketch. I'm going to click that green check mark. I'm going to use my view cube to rotate out again. Grab my extrude tool. Click here, and we're going to change this to 0.75. Then I am going to just hit my enter key, click my green check mark, and now I have my completed part. So that it was creating a model using just additive features. Okay, so now let's take a look at our subtractive model. Now technically we have to use an additive method to create our giant shape first, but there is no way to subtract from nothing. So we have to first make this big rectangle. So we're going to sketch a 2.25 inch by 1.5 inch rectangle and then extrude that rectangle to 1.5 inches. So I'm going to come back over here to Onshape. Now some of you may still be inside the additive model. Totally fine. You're going to come to these 3 lines and choose Close Document, and it's going to take you back to your dashboard. From here, you're going to choose Create Document, and we're going to label this 1.2.2 Subtractive Model and your last name. Then we're going to hit OK, and it's going to load our workspace. And just like we did in the additive model, I'm going to choose New Sketch, and I'm going to choose the front plane. I'm then going to use my view cube to rotate. And I am just going to go use my corner to corner rectangle tool to just draw a general rectangle shape. So again, my dimensions for this are 2.25 by 1.5. So I'm going to grab my dimension tool, select this line, 2.25, and then we're going to come over here and 1.5. So that's the size of our rectangle. I'm now going to close my sketch by hitting the green check mark, and I'm going to use the view cube to rotate back to that isometric view. Okay, so now I'm going to take the extrude tool and I'm going to extrude this to a depth of 1.5. And I'm going to hit the check mark. And that is my total rectangle size. So you can see we've now created a rectangle that was 2.25 by 1.5 by 1.5. The next thing I have to do is I have to create this cube on the front so I can then cut away this 0.75 inch thickness. So to do that, I'm going to create a new sketch on the front of this rectangle, use my view cube to rotate to the front. I'm going to get my corner to corner rectangle tool again. I am going to draw my cube, and I'm going to dimension this to 0.75 and 0.75. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to hit the green check mark, and I'm going to rotate back to that isometric view. I'm going to grab the extrude tool again, but instead of new, we're actually going to choose the remove option. And I'm going to choose this surface right here, and I'm going to change this depth to 0.75. I'm then going to hit the green check mark, and I now have removed that portion of this model. So now our third step is that we need to get rid of this 0.75 cube up here in the corner. So I'm going to start a new sketch, but this time I'm going to be very careful to choose this area in here. I'm going to use my front view to rotate, grab my corner to corner rectangle, draw a cube, dimension it to 0.75, and that looks very large. I'm going to double check that measurement because I am just not sure that that's what it is. Whenever you're unsure about measurements, it's always good to go back and check. And this is really itty bitty. So let's hit present for a second, see if we can see it a little bit easier. Yep, it's 0.75. So we're going to hit the escape key. So we're going to come back in here. I'm going to hit my escape key and I am going to, not click on the extra thing. I am just going to click on that green check mark and then unclick on there. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to grab my extrude tool again and hit remove and select this. And I am going to change this depth to 0.75 because that is all that is remaining of that area. Actually, it's less than that, but that'll go all the way through, as you can see. And then I'm going to hit the green check, and it has completely removed that corner. So now we have the exact same shape done with a subtractive method. Okay, so now we are going to combine both additive and subtractive methods to be able to create a different model. So inside of Onshape, if you still have the subtractive model open, go to the 3 lines, choose Close Document. We're going to hit Create Document. We're going to choose 1.2.2, and this is Combination Method, and your last name. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to open up my workspace. And looking at this, the first thing it wants me to do is create this rectangle and then extrude it back, which is an additive method. So I am going to really quickly go into present mode so I can read these dimensions because they are tiny. So this is 2 by 7. So I'm going to escape from here. And I'm going to hit sketch, front, and I'm going to rotate just like I did before. Grab my corner to corner rectangle tool, and this is a long and skinny rectangle. I'm going to dimension this to 7. And I'm going to dimension this to 2. Now this is very much off of our plane, but still in our sketch, so don't worry about it being large. I'm going to hit the green check mark and rotate back. The next step it has me do is it has me extruding this thickness as the additive method. So the question is, how big are we extruding this? I'm trying to remember from when we drew this as an isometric model, because I don't think my PowerPoint slide has that measurement. It should. So what we can do is we can actually infer the measurement from up here, because the distance from here to here is 2 inches, and then we have a 1 inch to here, so we can infer, since this is symmetrical, that this is 2 inches. So the depth we actually need to extrude is 5 inches across the front. That is not great blueprint planning. We will talk more about that later on. But right now I'm going to click, but I need this to actually go the other direction. So I'm going to click this arrow to change the direction, and I'm going to type 5 inches, and it is going to extrude that model. Perfect. So my next step is going to be to create the subtractive bit. Oh, nope, I fibbed. We need to create this top bit right here. And again, I don't have that height. So we're going to make that 3, because I think that would make sense. I am sorry we don't have all the measurements, but we're just going with it. So we're going to hit the top. So what I did was I chose sketch, and I chose the top. I'm now going to use my view cube to rotate to the top. Grab my corner to corner rectangle, and draw a rectangle across that whole top edge. Now I do have the measurement for this, which is 2, and I apologize that you can't see that at this moment. In order to navigate to where you can see a little bit easier if this gets off center, you can use your rotations like this, and then you'll be able to see. Anytime you need to go home, just hit isometric and it will do that for you. So now that I've got that dimension to 2, I'm going to grab my extrude option. It's going to go up, and we were going to make that 3 because I think that'll make sense. Looks about right. So now our next step is to cut out this little 1-inch piece, and that is 1 inch by 3 inches. Perfect. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to start a new sketch on this surface. I'm going to choose my top view again. And this one, oop, wrong tool. Let me open my sketch 3 again. This one's going to create a little bit more dimensioning for us because we have to make sure that this is the right size and in the right location. So we're going to dimension this to 1. And then the distance from here to here is 3. So I'm going to grab my dimension tool and I'm going to click on this line and click on the edge and drag to the right. And I'm going to choose 3. And now that's in the correct location. So now I can hit isometric from my little cube here. And I'm going to choose my extrude tool. Again, we're choosing remove. And I need to go the full depth of this piece. So I'm actually just going to type a 1. And I'm going to hit the check mark. That did not get rid of all of it. I don't know why, because it's very much larger than that. There we go. Just going to change it to a number that I know is going to cut all the way through. So now I have that. And then I have to do the same thing and subtract this top portion. So I'm going to create a new sketch from here. I'm going to rotate to my right view. And I'm going to apologize for all the noise my dog is making in the background. She's decided to wake up from her nap. And I am going to dimension this to, I am sorry these numbers are so small on my screen. So we need 1 inch tall, and it's 1 inch here. So that area is 3 inches, because 4 minus 1 is 3. So I'm going to come in here with my dimension tool. This is going to be 3. This is going to be 1. Now you'll notice when I made those adjustments, this became off center. So I need to dimension the location for this as well by clicking on those 2 lines and choosing 1. Now that's recentered. So now I can close that sketch. I'm going to go back to isometric. We're going to grab our extrude tool, choose remove, choose here, and I am going to change this depth. I'm just going to type in a 3 again because I know that is guaranteed to go all the way through, and I'm going to hit the check mark. So that was our combination method. I'm sorry that wasn't as graceful as my modeling usually is. I was a little distracted by Sadie running around, not going to lie. But in general, that is our combination method.